Well, well, if it isn't the Barren Queen herself. Damien's snide remark cut through the bustling restaurant like a knife. I turned to face my ex-husband, his lips curled into a smug grin. Beside him stood Tiffany, his much younger wife, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "Damien," I acknowledged, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside me. "I see you couldn't resist the opportunity to ruin this special occasion." "Special occasion?" Tiffany scoffed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer handbag. "What's so special about your daughter getting into some second-rate law school?" I gritted my teeth, refusing to let their venom spoil this moment. "Jasmine worked hard for this. She earned her place at a top-tier university." Damien laughed, the sound grating against my nerves. "And where is the father of this supposed prodigy? Oh, that's right, you couldn't keep a man long enough to have a real family." His words stung, reopening old wounds I thought had long since healed. 15 years ago, I discovered Damien's affair with Tiffany, his secretary at the time. He left me, shattered and alone, as I grappled with the devastating news of my infertility. "Damien, that's enough," a familiar voice interjected. I turned to see Ethan, my boyfriend of 3 years, standing behind me, his hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder. Jasmine stood beside him, her eyes wide with concern. "Mom, is everything okay?" Jasmine asked, glancing warily at Damien and Tiffany. I forced a smile, determined not to let their presence ruin this celebration. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Let's go inside and enjoy our dinner." As we made our way to our table, I caught snippets of Damien and Tiffany's conversation. "Can you believe her?" Tiffany hissed. "Parading around with that man like he's the father of her child. We all know the truth." Ethan's grip on my hand tightened, and I could see the anger flashing in his eyes. He turned to face the couple, his voice low and controlled. "You know, Damien, for someone who prides himself on being a father, you seem quite comfortable raising a child that isn't even yours." Damien's face paled, and Tiffany's eyes widened in shock. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at their discomfort. "What are you talking about?" Damien sputtered, his bravado faltering. I met his gaze, my voice steady and clear. Jasmine was conceived through IVF with my late husband, whom I married after our divorce. He may not have been her biological father, but he loved her unconditionally. Ethan nodded, his arm wrapping around my waist, and I consider myself lucky to be a part of their lives now. Damien opened his mouth to retort, but Tiffany tugged on his arm, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Let's go, Damien. We don't need to waste our time here." As they stormed out of the restaurant, I felt a sense of lightness wash over me. For years, I had carried the weight of Damien's betrayal and the pain of my infertility. But standing there, surrounded by the love and support of my family, I realized that I had found happiness despite it all. Jasmine hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "I love you, Mom. Thank you for always being there for me." I kissed her forehead, my heart swelling with love. "I love you too, sweetheart. Now, let's celebrate your incredible achievement." As we took our seats at the table, I caught Ethan's gaze, his eyes filled with admiration and love. In that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had everything I needed right there beside me. As I watched Damien and Tiffany's retreating figures, memories of the past came flooding back, threatening to drown me in their intensity. 15 years ago, my world had shattered into a million pieces, and I was left to pick up the fragments alone. It was a day like any other when I discovered Damien's betrayal. I had come home early from work, eager to surprise him with the news of our long-awaited fertility appointment. But as I stepped into our bedroom, I found him tangled in the sheets with Tiffany, his secretary. "Naomi, I can explain," Damien stammered, hastily pulling on his clothes, but there was no explanation that could justify his actions. Tiffany, on the other hand, seemed unfazed by my presence. She smirked at me, her eyes glinting with malice. "I guess he finally got tired of your barren womb." Her words cut deeper than any knife ever could. I had always known that my infertility was a source of tension in our marriage, but I never imagined that Damien would use it as an excuse to cheat on me. In the weeks that followed, Damien made it clear that he had no intention of ending his affair with Tiffany. "She can give me what you can't," he spat, his words dripping with venom. "A real family, with children of our own." I pleaded with him, begging him to reconsider, but he was adamant. "Face it, Naomi, you're damaged goods. No man wants a woman who can't bear his children." The divorce was a brutal affair, with Damien using my infertility as a weapon against me. He painted me as a cold, unloving wife who had driven him into the arms of another woman. The judge, a man with little empathy for the plight of a barren woman, sided with Damien, granting him a generous settlement. I was left with nothing but the shattered remains of my life. For months, I wallowed in self-pity, drowning my sorrows in alcohol and self-loathing. But then a miracle happened. I met a man named Jack, a widower with a kind heart and a gentle soul. He saw past my brokenness and loved me for who I was, infertility and all. We married in a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by the few friends and family who had stood by me through my darkest days. When we decided to start a family, Jack never once questioned my ability to be a mother. We explored every option available to us, from adoption to surrogacy, before finally settling on IVF. It was a long and arduous journey, but in the end we were blessed with a beautiful baby girl, Jasmine. Jack passed away when Jasmine was just 5 years old, leaving me to raise her on my own. But I never once doubted my ability to be a good mother. I poured all my love and energy into raising her, determined to give her the life she deserved. And now, here I was, watching my daughter celebrate her acceptance into law school with a loving boyfriend by my side. Ethan had come into my life 3 years ago, a beacon of light in the darkness. He loved Jasmine as if she were his own, and together we had built a beautiful life. As we sat down to dinner, Jasmine raised her glass in a toast. "To family," she said, her eyes shining with love and gratitude. "To the people who stand by us, no matter what." I clinked my glass against hers, my heart swelling with pride. "To family," I echoed, my gaze drifting to Ethan. He smiled at me, his hand reaching across the table to squeeze mine. In that moment, I realized that I had everything I needed. The pain of my past, the betrayal and the heartbreak had led me to this very moment. And I wouldn't change a thing. As we savored our meal, the clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation filled the air. Jasmine regaled us with stories of her campus visit and the professors she hoped to learn from, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Ethan and I listened intently, our hearts bursting with pride at the young woman she had become. But our moment of joy was short-lived. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Damien and Tiffany, who had apparently decided to dine at the same restaurant. They made their way over to our table, their faces etched with disdain. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Damien sneered, his gaze flickering between Ethan and Jasmine. "Playing house with another man's child, I see." Ethan's jaw clenched, but he remained composed. "Jasmine is a bright, accomplished young woman. Any man would be lucky to call her his daughter." Tiffany let out a derisive snort. "Please. We all know she's not really yours. How does it feel, knowing you're raising another man's bastard?" I felt my blood boil at her words. How dare she speak about my daughter that way? But before I could respond, Ethan spoke up, his voice calm and measured. "You know, Damien, for someone who claims to be such a devoted father, you seem awfully preoccupied with other people's children. Perhaps you should focus on your own son, instead of worrying about mine." Damien's face reddened, and he opened his mouth to retort, but Ethan continued. "And as for you, Tiffany, I suggest you watch your tongue. Jasmine is a remarkable young woman, and I'm proud to be a part of her life. Biology doesn't make a family. Love does." Tiffany's eyes narrowed, and she looked like she was about to say something else, but Damien grabbed her arm. "Come on, let's go. We don't need to waste our time with these people." As they stalked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. For years I had let Damien's words and actions control me, but no more. I had found happiness and love on my own terms, and nothing he said or did could take that away from me. Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. His eyes filled with concern. "Are you okay, Naomi? I know that couldn't have been easy for you." I smiled at him, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I'm fine, Ethan. Better than fine, actually. I have everything I need right here." Jasmine reached over and squeezed my other hand. "I love you, Mom, and I love you too, Ethan. Thank you for always being there for us." We finished our meal in a comfortable silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. As we walked out of the restaurant, I couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment wash over me. I had come so far from the broken, shattered woman I had once been, and I knew that I had the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Days later, I received a phone call from Damien. At first, I was tempted to ignore it, but something in his voice made me pause. He sounded different, almost broken. "Naomi, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice trembling. "It's about Tyler. I think he might not be mine." I felt a sense of dread wash over me. As much as I despised Damien for what he had done to me, I knew that this was a pain no parent should have to endure. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice cautious. "I found some old emails between Tiffany and another man. They were intimate, and the dates line up with when Tyler was conceived." I closed my eyes, my heart aching for the little boy caught in the middle of this mess. "Damien, I'm so sorry. No child deserves to be put through this." "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't know what to do. I love that boy more than anything in this world, but I can't stand the thought of Tiffany lying to me all these years." I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to say would change everything. "Damien, I know we have our differences, but for Tyler's sake, we need to put them aside. That little boy needs his father now more than ever." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "You're right," Damien said finally. "I need to be there for my son, no matter what. Thank you, Naomi, for everything." As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for redemption after all. As we left the restaurant, the cool evening air was a welcome respite from the tension that had filled the room just moments before. Jasmine and Ethan walked ahead, their laughter carrying on the breeze as they recounted stories from Jasmine's childhood. I followed behind, my heart full of love and pride for the family I had built. But even as I savored the moment, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in the pit of my stomach. Damien's words and the look of pure venom in Tiffany's eyes had struck a nerve that I thought had long since been buried. As we reached the car, I overheard snippets of their conversation, carried on the wind like poisoned arrows. "Can you believe the nerve of that woman?" Tiffany hissed, her voice dripping with contempt. "Parading around with that man like he's some kind of hero when we all know the truth." Damien grunted in response, his face twisted into a scowl. "She's always been a manipulative bitch. Probably tricked that poor bastard into raising another man's kid, just like she tried to do to me." I felt my blood boil at their words, but I forced myself to remain calm. I had spent too many years letting their poison seep into my veins, and I refused to give them that power over me anymore. Ethan, ever the gentleman, opened the car door for me, his hand resting reassuringly on the small of my back. "Don't let them get to you," he murmured, his voice low and soothing. "They're not worth your energy." I nodded, taking a deep breath as I slid into the passenger seat. Jasmine climbed into the back, her face etched with concern. "Mom, are you okay? I heard what they were saying, and it's not true. You know that, right?" I turned to face her, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I know, sweetheart, and I'm so proud of you for rising above their pettiness. You're an amazing young woman, and I'm so lucky to be your mom." Jasmine smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm the lucky one, Mom. You've always been there for me, no matter what. And Ethan." She turned to face him, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for being such an incredible stepdad. I know I'm not your biological daughter, but you've never made me feel like anything less than family." Ethan reached back and squeezed her hand, his eyes misty. "You are my family, Jasmine. Blood doesn't define us. Love does." As we drove home, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. 15 years ago, I had been a broken shell of a woman, shattered by Damien's betrayal and the cruel twists of fate that had left me barren. But I had risen from the ashes, stronger and more resilient than ever before. I had found love again, in the form of a kind and gentle man who saw me for who I truly was. I had built a family, not through biology, but through the unbreakable bonds of love and loyalty. And I had watched my daughter grow into a brilliant, compassionate young woman, ready to take on the world. But even as I reveled in my hard-won happiness, I couldn't shake the feeling that Damien's call was just the beginning. The revelation that Tyler might not be his biological son was sure to send shockwaves through his already fractured marriage, and I knew that Tiffany would stop at nothing to keep her carefully crafted facade from crumbling. As we pulled into the driveway, I steeled myself for the battles that lay ahead. I knew that Damien would need my help, whether he wanted to admit it or not. And I knew that Tiffany would do everything in her power to make my life a living hell. But I also knew that I had the strength to weather any storm. I had my family by my side and the unshakable knowledge that I had built a life worth fighting for. And no matter what Damien or Tiffany threw my way, I would never let them take that away from me again. A few days after the phone call, Damien showed up at my doorstep, his face a mask of anguish and despair. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I wanted to invite this man, who had caused me so much pain, back into my life. But the look in his eyes, the sheer desperation, made me step aside and usher him in. "I didn't know where else to go," he said, his voice hoarse and trembling. I can't believe this is happening." I led him into the living room, gesturing for him to take a seat on the couch. "Tell me everything," I said, my voice calm and measured. Damien took a deep breath, his hands shaking as he clasped them together. "I got the results of the paternity test today. Tyler? He's not mine." I felt a wave of sympathy wash over me, even as a small, vindictive part of me whispered that he deserved this pain. "I'm so sorry, Damien. I can't imagine how you must be feeling." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and despair. "I just don't understand how she could do this to me, how she could lie to me for all these years, letting me believe that Tyler was my son." I reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, surprised at the way he leaned into my touch. "Damien, I know we've had our differences, but what Tiffany did to you, it's unforgivable. No one deserves to be lied to like that." He nodded, his jaw clenched tight. "I just feel so stupid. All those years I blamed you for our infertility when it was my own damn fault. I should have known that something was wrong when Tiffany got pregnant so easily, but I was just so desperate to be a father." I felt a lump form in my throat, the old wounds of our failed marriage still raw and aching. "Damien, I forgave you a long time ago for what happened between us. But I need you to know that what you did, the way you used my infertility against me, it was cruel and unfair." He hung his head, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I know, and I'm so sorry, Naomi. I was a fool and a bastard, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need your help." I raised an eyebrow, surprised at the request. "My help? With what?" Damien looked up at me, his eyes blazing with a newfound determination. "I want to make Tiffany pay for what she did to me, for what she did to Tyler, and I need your help to do it." I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to get involved in this messy situation. But the look on Damien's face, the sheer desperation and anger, made me realize that I couldn't turn my back on him, not now, when he needed me the most. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll help you, but we do this my way, Damien. No more lies, no more games. We find a way to make Tiffany pay that doesn't hurt Tyler in the process." Damien nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Naomi. I know I don't deserve your help, but I promise I'll make this right, for Tyler's sake and for yours." As he left my house that day, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I knew that getting involved with Damien again, even in this limited capacity, was a risk. But I also knew that I couldn't stand by and watch as Tiffany destroyed another family the way she had destroyed mine. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battles that lay ahead. I knew that Tiffany would stop at nothing to keep her secrets buried, and that she would come after me with everything she had. But I also knew that I had the strength to face her, and the knowledge that I was fighting for something bigger than myself. For Tyler, and for all the children out there who deserved to know the truth about their parents. And for myself, and the chance to finally put the ghosts of my past to rest, once and for all. Months had passed since Damien's shocking revelation, and life had settled into a new normal. Jasmine was thriving in law school, her passion for justice and equality burning brighter than ever. Ethan and I had grown even closer, our love weathering the storms of the past and emerging stronger than before. But even as I savored the peace and happiness of my new life, I couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. And drop it did, in the form of a haggard and desperate Damien, once again darkening my doorstep. "Naomi, I need your help," he said, his voice raw and ragged. Tiffany's taking me to the cleaners in the divorce, and I don't know what to do. I sighed, feeling a twinge of sympathy for the man who had once been my husband. Damien, I'm sorry, but I don't know how I can help you. You made your bed, and now you have to lie in it. He shook his head, his eyes wild and desperate. You don't understand. She's demanding alimony and child support, even though she knows damn well that Tyler isn't mine. She's bleeding me dry, Naomi, and I don't have anywhere else to turn. I hesitated, torn between my desire to help and my reluctance to get involved in Damien's messy divorce. But the look on his face, the sheer desperation and fear, made me realize that I couldn't turn my back on him. Not now, when he needed me the most. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll see what I can do, but Damien, you need to understand that this isn't going to be easy. Tiffany's not going to give up without a fight, and she's going to come after you with everything she has. He nodded, his jaw clenched tight. I know, but I can't let her win, Naomi. I can't let her destroy my life the way she destroyed yours. I felt a lump form in my throat, the old wounds of our failed marriage still raw and aching. But I pushed the pain aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. Okay, let's start by gathering all the evidence we can. Bank statements, phone records, anything that can prove that Tiffany was unfaithful and that Tyler isn't your biological son. Damien nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Naomi. I know I don't deserve your help, but I promise I'll make this right, for Tyler's sake and for yours. As he left my house that day, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I knew that getting involved with Damien again, even in this limited capacity, was a risk. But I also knew that I couldn't stand by and watch as Tiffany destroyed another life, the way she had destroyed mine. Over the next few weeks, Damien and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence against Tiffany. We pored over bank statements and phone records, piecing together a damning picture of her infidelity and deceit. And with each new piece of evidence, I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that we were one step closer to bringing her to justice. But even as we made progress, I couldn't shake the feeling that Tiffany was always one step ahead of us. She had a way of slipping through our fingers, like a snake shedding its skin, and I knew that she would stop at nothing to keep her secrets buried, no matter who she had to hurt in the process. One evening, as I sat at my desk, poring over yet another stack of documents, I heard a knock at the door. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Somehow, I knew that it was Tiffany, come to confront me once and for all. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle that lay ahead. I knew that she would come at me with everything she had, but I also knew that I had the truth on my side. And with Damien by my side, I knew that we could face anything that she threw our way. I opened the door, my head held high and my eyes blazing with determination. "Hello, Tiffany," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I've been expecting you." Tiffany stood on my doorstep, her eyes blazing with fury and her lips twisted into a sneer. "Where is he, Naomi?" she demanded, her voice dripping with venom. "Where's that bastard husband of mine?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning ignorance. "I'm sorry, Tiffany, but I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't seen Damien in weeks." She laughed, a harsh, grating sound that set my teeth on edge. "Don't play dumb with me, you bitch. I know you've been helping him, trying to screw me over in the divorce. But it's not going to work. I'm going to take him for everything he's worth, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." I felt a surge of anger course through my veins, hot and powerful. How dare she come to my home, making demands and throwing accusations? After everything she had done, all the lies and the betrayal, she had the nerve to play the victim. "Listen to me, Tiffany," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "I don't know where Damien is, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. He's done with you, and so am I. You can threaten me all you want, but it's not going to change the fact that you're a lying, cheating whore who destroyed her own family." Tiffany's face twisted with rage, and for a moment I thought she might actually strike me. But instead, she took a step back, her eyes narrowing to slits. "You think you're so perfect, don't you, Naomi? The noble ex-wife, the loving mother, the loyal friend. But you're no better than me. You're just a pathetic, barren bitch who couldn't keep her own husband satisfied." I felt the words like a blow to the gut, the old wounds of my infertility and my failed marriage ripping open anew. But I refused to let her see how much she had hurt me. I straightened my spine, my head held high, and looked her dead in the eye. "You're right, Tiffany. I am barren, and I did lose my husband all those years ago. But you know what? I survived. I picked myself up, dusted myself off, and built a new life for myself. A life filled with love and happiness and purpose. And that's something you'll never have, no matter how much money you squeeze out of Damien." Tiffany's face went white with shock, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. For a moment I thought she might actually back down. But then her eyes hardened, and she took a step forward, her voice low and menacing. "This isn't over, Naomi. I'm going to find Damien, and I'm going to make him pay for what he's done, and if you get in my way, I'll destroy you too, just like I destroyed your marriage all those years ago." With that, she turned on her heel and stalked away, leaving me standing in the doorway, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that she meant every word, that she would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. But I also knew that I was stronger than her, that I had the truth on my side. I closed the door, my mind racing with possibilities. I knew that I had to find Damien, to warn him about Tiffany's threats and to help him fight back against her lies. But I also knew that I couldn't do it alone. I needed help, someone who could be my eyes and ears on the ground, someone who could help me stay one step ahead of Tiffany and her schemes. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed the number. "Ethan?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need your help. Tiffany's on the warpath, and I don't know what to do." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and then Ethan's voice, warm and reassuring. "I'm on my way, Naomi. We'll figure this out together, I promise. Just hold on, and don't let her get to you. You're stronger than she is, and you always will be." I felt a rush of gratitude and love wash over me, the tension in my shoulders easing just a bit. With Ethan by my side, I knew that I could face anything that Tiffany threw my way, and together we would find a way to bring her to justice once and for all. As the dust settled from Tiffany's explosive visit, I found myself reflecting on the twisted path that had led us all to this moment. Damien, the man who had once shattered my heart and my dreams, was now facing the same pain and betrayal that he had inflicted upon me so many years ago. And Tiffany, the woman who had stolen him away with her lies and her deceit, was finally getting a taste of her own bitter medicine. It was a strange feeling, this sense of poetic justice that washed over me. I had spent so many years nursing my wounds, hiding my pain behind a facade of strength and resilience. But now, as I watched the karma that Damien and Tiffany had so richly deserved come back to bite them, I felt a sense of peace and closure that I had never known before. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Tiffany was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for her chance to strike. And Damien, for all his faults and his mistakes, was still a broken man, struggling to come to terms with the lies that had destroyed his life. But I knew that I was stronger than them both. I had survived their betrayal, their cruelty, and their deceit, and I had come out the other side a better person for it. I had found love again. We had with a man who cherished me for who I was, not for what I could give him. I had built a family, a real family, filled with laughter and joy and unconditional love. And now, as I watched Jasmine thriving in law school, her passion for justice and equality burning brighter than ever, I knew that I had made the right choices. I had chosen to rise above the pain and the anger, to focus on the things that truly mattered in life. And in doing so, I had found a happiness and a fulfillment that I had never dreamed possible. Ethan, as always, was my rock, my anchor in the storm. He held me close as I poured out my fears and my doubts, his strong arms a shelter from the chaos that swirled around us. "You're doing the right thing, Naomi," he murmured, his voice low and soothing. "You're standing up for what's right, for what's true, and no matter what happens, I'll be right here beside you, every step of the way." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "I know," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. "I couldn't do this without you, Ethan. You're my strength, my courage, my everything." He smiled, his eyes shining with love and pride. "And you're mine, Naomi. You always have been, and you always will be." As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I watched as Damien's life unraveled before my eyes. Tiffany, true to her word, had taken him for everything he was worth, leaving him broken and destitute. And Tyler, the innocent child caught in the crossfire of their lies and their deceit, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered world. But even in the midst of all the chaos and the heartbreak, I knew that there was still hope. Hope for a better future, a brighter tomorrow. Hope for a world where love and truth and justice would always triumph over lies and betrayal and greed. And so I held my head high, my eyes fixed on the horizon. I knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that there would be obstacles and challenges at every turn. But I also knew that I had the strength and the courage to face them all, to keep moving forward, no matter what life threw my way. Because in the end, that was what truly mattered. Not the pain of the past or the fear of the future, but the love and the joy and the hope that we held in our hearts. And as long as I had that, as long as I had my family and my friends and my own unshakable sense of self, I knew that I could face anything that the world had in store for me. And so I smiled, my heart full of gratitude and grace. I had survived the worst that life had to offer, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. And now, as I looked out at the bright, shining future that lay ahead, I knew that I was ready for whatever came next.